This is a brief description of how my sculpture was made. The first thing you have to make is an armature. I take water clay and build up the sculpture. I usually use solid water clay. In case I have to leave it for a few months, it's not going to crack on me. Working from my memory of Jimi and many pictures of different angles, I start sculpting the sculpture. The sculpture is finished and I get ready for my next steps. Looks strange, but I start making a plaster mold. I like making a plaster mold because for one thing I can sculpt inside the plaster mold. Mold all made, I open it up and then start cleaning out the clay. Molds are all cleaned out, and then I go on to the next step of carving into and sculpting inside my mold. Now I'm separating the mold with oil soap, so plaster doesn't stick to plaster.
Press releases about logistical issues now that we know the issue. Well, which media outlet would do that?
Tie and put together the mold to get ready to pour in hydrocal plaster.
And you try to keep it even. Okay.
This part's a lot of fun. You start chipping and carving away the plaster, and before you know it, you're going to come across a sculpture. The sculpture is now plaster, and it's time for me to start cleaning up the sculpture and re-sculpting some sections. The plaster sculpture is now finished, and it's time to start on the silicone rubber mold for making my bronzes. In making the silicone rubber mold, I first laid the sculpture down, divided it almost in half, and started designing what the rubber silicone was going to be. That means where it's divided, how it's going to fit in the mold, and how you're going to pour it. Over the clay, I make a plaster jacket to hold the rubber in place. It's amazing how fast you'll work when you want to go to lunch.
Okay. And I'm just going to quickly some shellac. Remember, it's not the Mona Lisa, just do it fast.
I just separated the jacket. Now I'm separating the sculpture so that the rubber comes off a little easier. I am now closing the mold and preparing the rubber. I am now removing the rubber. I am now pouring the rubber. The mold was turned over, and now I have to cast the back half. I am now making a mold on the back half. I have now poured the rubber and waiting for it to dry. I am now drilling holes for bolts. I am now opening the mold.
That's it. And this side comes off. Okay, so I pulled off this half.
The back half of the mold I decided to cut open.
Let it come down nice and even. Okay, she's off.
I called the mold a she because sometimes it's a little difficult. Obviously, now I'm putting the mold together.
Let's take a bolt. It's nice because I want to set half. Put this on there.
The mold is all made now and it's ready to go to the foundry. The bronze casts are back from the foundry. I made 5 because it's a limited edition of only 5 and that's all that will be made. The sculptures were casted at the Sakai Foundry in Tokyo, Japan. The Jimi after a cast, and you can see the nails to keep the inside and outside together. And of course, the gates and the vents. And here we got a little bit of flashing. It's still a great cast. And now we're going to start chasing. I do have a YouTube video, John Lennon bronze sculpture, chasing and casting, in which I show all the steps at a foundry, how they pour the wax and make the bronze. I also show chasing the bronze cast, which is cleaning and working on the bronze metal. I know. I hate cutting off the songs like that, but it's all because of copyright. I was lucky in my life to see Jimi about 5 times, as well as I can remember. First time was I went to see the Young Rascals at Central Park, and first came on stage was Jimi Hendrix. He came on stage with a lime green, bright green suit and large, huge bell bottoms. About 2 weeks later, I was trying to find the Vanilla Fudge concert at the Fillmore East, and we couldn't find it, but I did find this little club called the Cafe A Go-Go, and we saw Jimi Hendrix was playing there. It was a small club, and I was sitting about 20 feet from him. The main headliner at the club was Richie Havens. In fact, the Beatles song, With a Little Help from My Friends, just came out, and Richie Havens said he was going to try to play it for the first time. I was at the New Year's show at the Fillmore East when Jimi was playing with the Band of Gypsies. In fact, on the album, you can hear Something Happened to Jimi's guitar, and Buddy Miles went through this solo. Jimi came back on stage, checked his guitar, and then started playing again. Yes, of course, I was at Woodstock, and I waited all night, saw all the bands, and in the early morning, I saw Jimi Hendrix play at Woodstock Festival. I also saw Jimmy at the Singer Bowl, which was in New York City, and it was the old World's Fair grounds. And the first came on stage was the Chambers Brothers, then came on Janis Joplin, and then Jimmy played. Good day, sir.